Okay. We are trying this Facebook thing again. This is Susie, and we're back here for Facebook Live. I've had a couple of little issues with recording, so maybe this is third time lucky and a charm. Anyway, this particular Facebook Live is really, really, really dear to my heart. We're talking about cancer and cancer treatment. I've worked with a lot of people who are recovering from cancer and cancer treatment. I use that very, very specifically because I sometimes think that the treatment is actually harder sometimes than the actual cancer itself. And as I work with people, what becomes really interesting is that what comes out. But more importantly, I think, is that a lot of people don't tend to think about movement as a process to help them in recovery. And I know that might sound strange, but it's oftentimes when people come to see me at my studio space, it's not initially about cancer or cancer treatment. It's about other things, like they've been in a car accident, or they have TMJ issues, or they've got other things going on. And then as we have our intake, we discover that in the past couple of years they had had cancer and cancer treatment. Or some of them has been just 9 months ago where their treatment is finished up. And then they're here and they don't quite put together the relationship between how they're feeling and the treatment itself. So there's a contextual gap that's there. And as we then help them with the other factors that have brought them into the space, those other things, the cancer-related things start to come up, and I learn more about the depression or the sleepless nights, or how another part of their limb, which they didn't actually correlate to the issues that initially brought them into my space in the first place, how that's actually correlated to how that they're feeling. And then they start to just see more and more and more and more and more. So it's important, and this is why I want to share with you this from a biomechanics of healing perspective, because remember, healing, we're looking at this from the whole being, and the biomechanics part is this little part that I bring in around this movement piece, this awareness piece, understanding what's working that should be, and understanding what's not working that should be, and how to bring these things back online. Oftentimes with treatment, there is scar tissue. Oftentimes there's radiation. The tissue is different than it was pre-surgery, pre-treatment. And that tissue will respond differently. There might be removal of muscle or fat or other tissue in one part of the body to make something occur in another part of the body. There's so many factors that come into play. The other piece of it that's also vital and important to understand is that I'm not really sure there's many other processes out there that can hammer away at your own inner sense of knowing, and almost make you distrust what it is that you're feeling inside. Cancer is such it's surreptitious and it's sneaky and it's able to make its way through bodies somewhat undetected. And I've had many people say to me, how on earth was I not aware of what was going on? How on earth did this thing grow so quickly or without me knowing? And that's part of that process. So it can hammer away that inner sense of knowing, that inner trust, that inner confidence. So a lot of what I'm doing when I help people get back on their feet is to help them regain that inner sense of knowing, that inner sense of trust. I mean, really, if you think about it, there's not too many processes where you can lose a body part, you can lose your hair, and plus so much more, right? The illusion of life is really pulled away. So kind of keeping all that in mind as we then take that step forward, picking up the pieces and moving on. I was a part of a research program at the University of Calgary from 2001 to 2008 where I designed a yoga program, a 7-week yoga program for people to do based off of work that I'd done with people who I'd worked with who were recovering from cancer. And that program suggested some great benefits from movement and breathing and stillness. And I took the best of those and created Calm, Steady, Strong, which is a video download. And I wanted to bring that to people who were in treatment, because if you're in treatment and as you move through treatment and you're on the other side of treatment, you can have really good days, you can have really blasé days, and frankly, you can have really crappy days. So then where and how do you work with each of those, and how do you bring breath and stillness into that to help move you forward? And so then after you get through that, then there is the other 7-week series, the Yoga Thrive series, that then you can grab to kind of move you and progress you along. So this segues into a really important piece around recovery. And the first one is recognize where you're at. That's a big piece, is recognize where you are at in terms of where your body feels, how you feel, the level of tiredness that you have, fatigue, where you are in your head, your mental space, and know where you are at is now. And then build from that point. And you don't need to rush this forward. You don't need to make things happen. Because what will happen next is if you take baby steps and just recognize your movement patterns and make those movement patterns better, then you will feel better. And then the other piece, the third piece that's important is as you're taking those baby steps and as you're moving more, then recognize when you're doing things too much. And how do you even recognize that? Well, a great way to recognize with lymphedema, for example, is if you've had lymph nodes taken out, sometimes that can shift up how the lymph flows through your limbs. And if you notice, like in the knuckle area here, if it starts to get swollen, like you lose those knuckles, or if you feel like your exercise shirt begins to feel a lot tighter around your arm, or your pant leg starts to feel tighter around your pant leg, then chances are there's a little bit of fluid buildup. And so that's an indicator that you're just doing too much. I remember working with a woman who had lymph nodes taken out in around this area. And when she went to flow yoga, her leg became really heavy and hard to move. When she came to see me in some gentler movement, really focusing in on improving the leg bone movement in the pelvis, keeping the compensations down, helping to improve her stability, helping to improve her overall strength, that leg didn't feel so heavy. That the fluid moved a lot easier. And that's not an uncommon experience. So you want to pay attention to those physiological changes. I find sometimes for people in recovery that their mind can start to play games on them, right? For lots of reasons and very obvious reasons. And when we pay attention to physiologically what's actually going on in this body, that will actually give you a more reliable indicator if you're doing too much, right? Like I mentioned with the lymphedema. Your headspace doesn't necessarily provide you a reliable indicator, although what your headspace is saying is very, very vital in the whole picture. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't ignore your headspace, don't ignore your mindset, don't ignore your thoughts. Absolutely pay attention to those because those are indicators too. I'm more relating to pay attention to your physical structure for how your physical structure is doing. So if you feel like you notice like some fluid buildup, if you notice swelling, if you feel like your scar is just like it's not right, or if there's like pay attention to those things. There was a woman who I had in a recent therapeutic yoga intensive training, and she was like, there's something that's not quite going on, like it's not right. And so as we continue to move, then she could actually feel like it was more of a tissue thing and it started to shift. Right, so so get really clued into and connected to this structure that is here, that is you. Remembering to recognize where you're at and to take slow baby steps, because it's one of these things that the slower that you go, the faster that you will improve. I like to say it's the turtle that wins, not the hare, if you remember that, and that it's building upon one layer, upon another layer, upon another layer, upon another layer, and building a really solid foundation underneath all that so that you can get back to the activity that you want to do. Okay, so a couple little other things I want to mention. Let's just say you've had a breast remove or you've had lymph nodes removed here. So recognize that there's a scar here and that there's scars from having the lymph nodes, and there's just a difference in the tissue in through this area. So this tissue connects onto, or some of it connects onto part of the shoulder blade, the coracoid process, may connect up onto the collarbone, to the breastbone, to the ribs. All of that can be impeded, right? So that can impede the movement of the ribs as you breathe. It can impede the movement of the arm bone. It can make it very difficult to get a bra on by bringing your arms in behind your back. It might be difficult to bring your arm up to wash your hair or to blow dry your hair or to do your hair. Some people even find it difficult to get makeup on, to bring that arm up that high. So those are things to pay attention to, and to also recognize that those are things that can change. Because as you improve the tissue in this particular area, then that arm will move better. So I really want to implore you that things can actually improve. And so one little thing you can play with is to start to move your shoulder blades, just like so, really, really simply. So the shoulder blades come up, then you pull your blades back towards your spine and then bring them down. Now as you do that, you want to make sure that you're not shoving your ribs forward. That it really is a shoulder blade movement on your rib cage, okay? That's one. The other is you can bring your arms out to the side, palms facing forward, and squeeze your hands, and then open the palms. Now how high you go, you've got to pay attention to what you feel in through here. You might get quite a pull, so bring it down. There's no point in pushing this. Then as you feel more comfortable, then you can start to take that wrist back. Really super easy. And then bring it back. Really super, super easy. Those are just two little ideas, things that you can play with. The other is, from a breathing perspective, is to imagine just breathing easily and gently. And then imagine that you can take your breath wide into the side of your ribs. Don't change the volume of your breath. Just think about moving the sides of your ribs wide and then relax. Sides of the ribs wide and then relax. And one reason to do that is it just can start to bring some awareness to your rib cage and how your rib cage is working and is functioning. We're not trying to change anything in the rib cage. It's just starting to bring the awareness to how it is functioning and how it's moving in relationship to the rest of you. Okay? So that's one area to explore. Now another area to explore is down and through this area. So let's say, for example, you've had any type of surgery that's rib cage down lower. So that could be anything, any of the organs through here, anything at all. And what I found is that when there's been scar tissue or incisions or radiation and through this area, what I often find is the tissue can get really, really tight. And the hips can get really, really tight. So pay really close attention to how your leg bone moves in your pelvis. Now this could also be something that existed before the cancer came in and before treatment happened. So also be aware of that. But you can do really simple things, legs up the wall, crossing your ankles, and then moving that leg slowly towards the knee and really, really gently moving that leg bone. If you have the balance, you can hold on to something like a skeleton or a chair or a wall and just bring your leg up like so. But notice as I move that leg, it's all rotation and moving that leg bone in the hip socket. I'm not moving my pelvis. I'm not doing this with my pelvis. And then from here, you can just gently come into a very easy seated position. But again, notice that I'm doing the movement in through the hips. I'm not rounding through my body. So if you find that you're really, really tight here, it might be too much for your body. And so then take it to the floor, bring your legs up the wall, and start to play around with your legs there. Now, of course, these are simply suggestions. I'm talking to a screen. I can see that there's some people who are watching me. I can't see you. I can't see you move. So, of course, these are just simply ideas, and I am making an assumption that you'll be in an exploratory frame of mind as you play with them, and you can toss them out if they don't work, and you can play with them more if they do work. Okay? If you would like more assistance from me, if it's something that you want to have my eyes watch you and how you're moving, we got a few ways of doing that. The first way is we can connect privately. I do run a series of online sessions that we can meet up. The other is you can follow the videos that I made reference to, and I'll put links in the comment section below of the videos for if you're currently in treatment, or you're just out of treatment, or if you're ready to do a little bit more. And also, in May, I am running a Calm, Steady, Strong online program specifically for people who are finished treatment as well as their loved ones and friends. And the program will be all proceeds of the program will be going to charity. And I'm really encouraging people that can do it on their own. They can also bring friends with them to do it with them, because we all know that not only is it hard work to go through this, it's also really emotionally straining for people who are supporting. So we bring everybody together to help people move forward and reconnect, pick up the pieces, and move in towards life in a really strong, steady, calm way. So I'll put that link down in the bottom in the comment section as well. If there's questions, by all means, throw me a private message. and connect and let us help you get better, get back into life, back on your feet, and onward to move.